What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Creative James Media YouTube channel. I'm Matt, and I am the social media and marketing director. Today, we're bringing you another interview. Today, we're going to be talking with author Mike Steele, who is the author of the book Not Lucille, which just came out this June. We're going to be getting into a little bit about the book, the characters, and then getting into some rapid fire questions to see what kind of things he's into. So without further ado, let's jump in. Mike, how are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm pretty good, thanks. It's sunshine and not rain, so
Same thing here.
why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself a little bit?
So I'm Mike Steele. My middle grade debut just published in June. The title is Not Lucille. Prior to writing middle grade, I've been writing theater for young audiences for over a decade now, and I have 8 plays published in that market as well.
Okay. Was this your first book? Like, have you ventured into anything else before this?
Other than plays, no, this is my first, novel in prose that I attempted to write.
Um, so tell us a little bit about Not Lucille.
So, Not Lucille is middle grade historical fiction for ages about 8 to 11. It's set in the 1930s during the Great Depression in Trenton, New Jersey, in an Italian American neighborhood called Chambersburg. And most of the characters are Italian American. Lucy is the main character, and she is a little girl in 5th grade, 10 years old. And, her whole kind of world revolves in this Italian American neighborhood. But in the center of that neighborhood, there is a school for the deaf, and one day, Lucy decides she's gonna venture onto that closed campus, and the story continues from there.
Was there a particular event or something that kind of inspired or sparked this idea?
Yeah, so growing up, I grew up right outside of Trenton, and there's a park in Trenton. It's called Unity Square Park now, and there were older residents of the city and who had moved out to the suburbs where my family was, and they referred to that park as the Deefies. And I always thought that was a really interesting name for a park. So I kind of did some digging to figure out why this park, it was a nickname for the
Right.
park. Like, why do people call this park that? And I discovered that there used to be a school for the deaf, where the park is now currently located. I'm not sure if the word deefies is related to deaf. I can only make that assumption, but in the story, it is.
Right.
It's what the students call the campus of the School for the Deaf in the story. And so I just kind of thought to myself, in the middle of this neighborhood, which my grandparents grew up in, they were Italian American. In the middle of this Italian American neighborhood, there's a school for the deaf. Presumably, most of the student population was not Italian American. And I was just kind of curious, how would those two communities interact with each other? And then the story was born.
Did you do any research on the actual school that was there before you started writing?
I did. The school that was there had several different names throughout the course of its history. I want to say it was built in the 1800s. The school still exists. It's currently not in the heart of Trenton anymore. It's on the outskirts of Trenton. And I
Right.
actually, when I was in college, I used to volunteer there. The school kind of uses the campus uses space not just for the school anymore because it doesn't really need all that space anymore. Not as many deaf students are attending. So I volunteered in college scanning people's eyeglasses to then be donated. They had like a building where that happened. So I kind of knew that this school existed, and they have a museum on campus that you can visit. It's called the Marie Katzenbach School for the Deaf now. And I actually happen to have a former student of mine who is a speech pathologist there now. So she was able to get me a lot of information about the school as well.
Oh, that's really cool. I love hearing those stories because sometimes people are like, oh, I just got the info, something I thought of is what sparked it. But when it's kind of tied into an actual place or something interesting like that, where it's so rich in history, it kind of gives you a new perspective to kind of look at the story, um, and kind of think about it a little differently.
Yeah, you know, it was very difficult to get information about like what the school was like in the 1930s specifically. I had to use my imagination a little
Right.
bit in terms of what did the buildings look like. There weren't even very many photos available of that, but I tried to keep it as accurate as possible. Yeah.
Yeah, and there probably weren't many students or staff left from then either.
No.
So I could be like, "Hey, can you put me in touch with so and so, and we have an interview?"
Yeah, no, not I couldn't really find anybody that had attended there back then.
You're right. Outside of writing, what are some of your hobbies and interests?
Um, I'm a school librarian professionally. That's what I do most days, and I love reading, obviously. But beyond that, beyond the literary world, I very interested in theater. I see a lot of plays and musicals. I live in New Jersey, so New York City's not too far. I'm there all the time, seeing plays and musicals. I used to perform a little, not so much in recent years. I also really like to go. I live near the Jersey Shore. I like to go to the boardwalk. I like to play the video games at the arcades. I really love claw machines. Probably spend too much time and money
Me
on
too.
those.
Everywhere I go, I know I'm gonna get messed over, but I'm still like, I gotta try. Because I swear they're rigged sometimes.
Oh yeah. Oh,
I
they
swear by
are rigged.
it.
Yeah, definitely rigged. But you can kind of figure out what to do if you
Yeah, after
try.
after a few, you can kind of see, okay, does the claw shake or does it jerk when it goes? And then,
Yeah.
usually you can find something. Um, with you being where you are though, you're right next to the hub of plays and musicals, really. So you must get to see a lot of the good ones as they pass through with all the venues.
Yeah, yeah. And growing up right outside of Trenton, it's kind of in between New York and Philadelphia. So I was able to get to New York within an hour, Philadelphia within an hour. I could see the touring productions. I could see, Broadway productions off Broadway. I've seen, I can't even tell you, hundreds of shows.
Yeah, it's definitely I for anybody who's never seen a musical or play live, it's something that I always suggest. It is definitely a different experience than going to a movie or anything like that. I was in two musicals growing up, and so that's what sparked my interest in being able to go and see these. And that's not really too big where I live. I mean, occasionally some pop through passing by, but yeah, it's definitely on my bucket list to go see
To see a
something.
few more.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
I want to go to New York. I want to go make a visit, and because there's a lot of things that I want to see. So hopefully, fingers crossed, one of these days I can have a vacation.
You'll get there. You'll get there.
um, what do you personally find rewarding about the writing process?
Uh, Finishing is very rewarding. As I'm writing, it's not an enjoyable process for me
No.
to draft. I get very, very upset. I'm just like, what? I don't know where to go from here. And that happens about 1,000 times throughout the writing process. But finishing and having that finished piece, and like once it's finally in a state where I'm just like, yes, this is ready for somebody to look at it. I find that very rewarding because I'm like, I have created something where nothing existed before.
Right. Yeah, it's definitely one of those things that it's kind of for me it was emotionally fulfilling because I'm like I've gotten so many frustrated so many times between versions 1 through 5 trying to polish it off, finding somebody to take it, and that hunt I think is just as rewarding as finishing it. She's like, oh, somebody loves my story enough to kind of give it a chance
Yes.
and it helped me nudge it out there.
Yes, because until you find that somebody who wants to invest in it, you find a lot of people who could care less. So
Yeah,
it's very rewarding.
it's definitely a saturated world with kind of half-hearted publishing and self-publishing, and it's kind of it's definitely discouraging. But I just tell people, look, if it's your dream, you got to keep at it.
Oh, yeah.
You're gonna have maybe an exaggeration, but you're gonna have a million strikeouts until you find the perfect fit for yourself because you don't want to settle.
No, no.
Um,
And I always say I didn't write this for it to sit on my hard drive, so
right.
I'm not giving up. Even if I have to edit it again and again and again. And Not Lucille, it's the 27th draft that is published, but it's not going to sit on my hard drive forever and ever. Somebody's going to read this.
Exactly. And that's just what you got to do. Um, what do you hope that readers will take away from Not Lucille?
Well, I mean, it's written for kids, for 8 to 11 years old, and I really hope that a lot of them see themselves in the story. Lucy is she's neurodivergent. It's set in the 1930s, so we didn't really have names for all of the different neurodivergent conditions that we know of now. But I just hope that kids that their behavior is a little different, and maybe they get in trouble for it. I hope that they see themselves represented. And specifically, nowadays we have a lot of stories that are being published with neurodivergent characters. And in terms of ADHD, which is specifically what Lucy probably has, most of those characters are boys. And boys are much more likely to be diagnosed in real life with ADHD. But I
Yeah.
really did want to represent a girl, and that experience is different, and their behavior tends to be different as well. So I hope they see themselves reflected.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things I see that with my day job sometimes, and it's like it's kind of sad the way that goes. It's like, oh yes, oh we only see this in boys, so it's kind of the same as if like a man has an eating disorder. They're like, oh no, that's not possible.
Yeah.
And in reality, the kids just need a little help. They need somebody to be like, hey, I see you. Let's figure this out.
Yeah.
Um, would you say, in general, are you more of a plotter or a pantser? Do you really plan things out, or are you like, see what
Uh,
happens?
I'm a plotter fully. I will say, a lot of times I'll kind of have the general idea of the beginning and how I want the story to end. But I will, and I might write the first chapter. I think I wrote maybe the first 4 or 5 chapters of Not Lucille before I made a full outline, because I was just let me I knew how the story was going to start. I knew how it was going to end, and I knew the general what Lucy's trying to accomplish throughout the story. But I was I got to give the characters a voice before I really flesh out this plot. So once I've written the first, the beginning of the story, then I sit down and I write a detailed outline, because there's no way I can just keep it going and going and going and not know exactly where it's going. I don't want to, the people that do that, that love to do that, I'm happy for them, but I'm they always talk about how they have to scrap so much of their work because it's just not working. And I'm I don't want to do that. So,
Yeah, I was one of those people. this And I learned that after writing my first book that just came out in March. I was like, yeah, I should probably plan a little better. Even if it's just because it's one of those things. I see why people scrap it, because you're like, oh, we're writing about this particular topic, and then you have to scroll 80,000 words up to where you first mentioned it and be like, okay, how did I context that?
yes.
But
Yeah.
if you have that sheet, you can.
Even when you plot really well, you have to scroll back up and figure it. So I can't imagine how people do it without plotting. I don't want to try. I'm never going to try. So don't worry.
It's one of those things though that, especially as a first time author, you learn as you go. Um, I've written one book, I'm working on my second. I work for a publisher, but I'm still learning. I'm
Yeah.
still. The important thing is that you came out with a great book, but you're like, okay, I can still learn. There's still things that I can pick up and improve upon. And
Absolutely. I'm sure that in 10 years, I will look at this book the way I look at my first play, where I'm just okay, I'm proud of it, but look how much better I've gotten.
exactly, yeah. And sometimes that's hard to do when you first put it out, because you're like, man, this is my baby, this is my first, and then you're like, well, it was good, but um, is there a particular passage or um, part of the book that you're the most proud of?
I don't know. I mean, when I think about that, I'm oh, this is my favorite part. This is my favorite part. I have too many favorite parts and favorite characters to really say there's one. But one of the things that I enjoy is I try to not be too formulaic in my writing, and obviously you have to follow the formula of plot in general, and what's marketable to a certain demographic. But there's one chapter where Lucy's taking a test, and it's kind of structured a little differently than most of the other chapters. It's basically just like dialogue and onomatopoeia, a lot of scratch, scratch, scratch as the students are writing. And onomatopoeia is not something I really do a lot of elsewhere in the story. And so it's just structured differently. It's a much quicker chapter with the dialogue and all of that. And so I'm proud of that change and that it still works within the story.
Did you find at first when you were writing it, maybe first or second draft, did you find it hard at first to make that work, or was it always like, hey, this works?
Um, I don't know. I don't know how I thought, because I started writing it over 5 years ago. I don't remember exactly how I planned writing that chapter. I think I did know somewhat that it was going to flow that way. The hardest thing when I was writing that I kind of discovered along the process, and it was actually after the first draft, it was through having beta readers and some editors look at the work, was descriptions of the characters' thoughts. Having written a lot of plays, I wasn't used to writing what the characters were feeling, because that's something that an actor and director decide together, what the character's feeling. So I was used to writing the dialogue and some stage direction. And when you're writing a novel, you're writing dialogue and you're writing descriptions of people's actions. But it wasn't until really hearing back from some readers and some editors that I was like, I've got to add in what the characters, how they're feeling. And sometimes that's through, descriptions of their actions show how they feel. But there were some editors who were just like, no, we want to know exactly. We want you to tell us what the characters are feeling sometimes. So that was the hardest part.
Yeah, I think that's kind of an all around thing, because I had that with mine too. With my second book that I just wrote, that I sent it out and somebody's like, "Oh, there's too much dialogue," and then another person's like, "Well, there's the perfect amount of dialogue, but you described certain things too much."
Mm,
And I'm like, "Okay." And so like it's kind of, you just have to look, and since everybody kind of sees the perfect story differently, you kind of just got to take a little bit of everybody and see what they say, and then like, okay, does this make sense? No, move on. Does this make sense? No, move on. Or I can kind of see something, let's shelve it and look at the story.
yeah. And sometimes it also helps to know who's reading it, or
Right.
if you have similar tastes as they do in certain ways, you're like, okay, maybe I can trust this opinion more, because you're right. Everybody's going to tell you something different, and everybody enjoys reading different stories. And so you kind of, sometimes you have to go with your gut. And sometimes you have to really be like, how much do I trust this person's opinion, even just in that specific moment?
Right.
Like, would we be reading the same story?
Yeah. And that's why I took the approach of kind of, it's going to sound weird, but I purposely went to people who I knew would bash the heck out of it.
Hmm.
Like, just be brutally honest. Because I was like, look, this is only book two. I know I've grown since writing the first one, but I want kind of outside perspectives, and because you stare at it for so long, and then you're like, okay, either this is all bad or this is all good, and you kind of have no in between.
Yeah.
Um, so I was like, well, if I can get some brutal truth, then maybe it'll be
Yeah.
like open up a perspective that I wasn't thinking about at edits. So yeah, it's definitely good. That's why it's important to do beta and arc readers, just because then you can have both perspective of things. Is there a character that you relate to more in the book, and if so, kind of why is that?
I hate to say it, but I relate to the antagonist, which is the teacher, Miss Gillingham. She's Lucy's nemesis for most of the story. She's very rigid in her methodologies. She's definitely a type A personality, and she's very human, and you learn that throughout the story, that her intentions are good. And but I really do relate to her. Maybe it's because I'm a teacher, I'm a school librarian, so there's a lot of me in that character. But there's also, a lot of things that Miss Gillingham does that I would not do, but I do definitely relate to her.
Um, that just makes me laugh. I know so many teachers, and so that just when you said that, I was like, yeah, I think all of them can say that about one thing or another when it comes to the curriculum that they're teaching. Um, when you first saw your cover, what went through your mind?
Oh my goodness. Um, I don't know if you know, but we actually went through several versions of the cover with Creative James Media, and when I finally saw the like rendering of the finished cover before it was colored, before any of that, and it was just like the sketch, I was like, yes, 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 I love it. It is beautiful. One of the hardest things being with a small press publisher, like one of my biggest worries was the cover because it's something that can be very expensive. So I know that not all small presses can do, the same quality cover that
Right,
you're going to see facing front on a shelf at Barnes and Noble.
right.
And I also knew that when you're dealing with middle grade readers, um, the kids are definitely the cover is going to be what gets them to pick up that book. And I was in love with that cover when I saw it. It's beautiful.
Yeah, we've been very fortunate and very blessed to have some amazing cover designers that work with us, and I love just about all of them. We've almost every book we've been able to uh, match you with the right one and come up with something that you love and we think that the readers are going to love. Um, One other thing here, I want to get your opinion and be as honest as you can, as honest as you want. This is not a kiss up to us or we're going to be mad or what have you. But what do you like most about working with us here at Creative James Media?
I like the enthusiasm. From the moment I submitted, there was enthusiasm. And it really tells me that Creative James Media like personally cares about what they publish. I have plays with different publishers, and they're all wonderful in their own way. But when I met with Creative James Media for the first time, um, once they had read the full manuscript, I got to meet with several people on the team, and I had never had that happen before. I basically would submit and you get a contract and you sign it or you negotiate or whatever. But I had never had like Zoom meetings with multiple people on the team that's going to be working on this book. And so that was really, really nice to see.
Yeah, we try to give everybody the same thing. We want you to have as fair of a shake as possible. And that's why we kind of put it through the paces. You talk with each person from multiple little areas to be like, okay, who's going to be the best for them to format this to get the story in order, but not quite skew it in any way that we might not be used to, because everybody has their own genre or their own thing that they kind of are better at or more comfortable with. So we try our best.
Mm,
So um, all right, we've come to a section that I'm going to start trying out, and it's going to be some rapid fire questions. I'm going to ask you these questions, and just give me your favorite off the top of your head. Don't put too much thought into it. Let's see if we
okay.
can learn a few things.
Okay.
Coffee or tea?
Tea. I hate coffee.
I'm a coffee snob.
I can't
Mo-
drink it.
Movies or TV shows?
Neither. Is that bad? If
No.
I have to pick TV,
Ebooks or physical copies?
mm, physical copies, but it's toss up.
Happy endings or bittersweet closure?
Happy endings.
And two of your favorite authors to read.
I love Anne M. Martin. If you don't know who she is, she wrote the Babysitters Club series. She is the master, and also Beverly Cleary, who was, historically just a very prolific children's writer.
She was around in our library a lot. when I was in school.
Yes.
Like a lot of her books are, even some of them still in schools. I don't know quite the state of libraries anymore, but I would
Oh,
assume
yeah.
they're
Oh,
still
she's
around.
still widely read.
And before we close out today, do you have any signings, interviews, or events that you would like to promote?
Nothing that's got a solid date yet, but I will be in Barnes and Noble in Hamilton Township, New Jersey at some point in September, and stay tuned for that date.
Yeah, guys, we will have his links to all of his socials in the description, as well as the link to where you can buy your own copy of Not Lucille. Mike, thank you so much for taking some time to chat with me today.
Thank you.
Have a great rest of your day.
You too.